Do not take product if you are hypersensitive.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Intoxicated Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah McClellan. Typically, this is a comedy podcast where I get personal with friends, comedians, and various guests, sometimes over a drink or two. This week, I finally decided to put together a tribute episode for Andrew Vaughan, the big cat, our friend, and one of the best comedians this scene has ever seen. Not even this scene, across Canada. This is a tough one, but I also think that this episode will bring comfort to people who are missing Andrew and are feeling that loss just as much as I am. So not only are a lot of people dealing with this grief, this terrible loss, but we are also dealing with self-isolation and quarantine and the COVID-19 crisis, which is causing so much anxiety and stress and despair across the world. So it is a very shitty time, if I'm being, again, fully honest. I have not been doing well, in the sake of honesty. I have not. I have had decent days where I've, tried to be as normal as I can. And I've had some really bad days in terms of the grief process. I've had days where I haven't been able to get out of bed because I've just been so overcome. So I'm still feeling this really hard, but I thought it was important to do a tribute episode to Andrew. He had such an impact on this podcast and on my life as a person. And as you will hear in this episode, I have some messages from people who knew him and people who were impacted by him. And what I love the most about the variety of clips I have is it shows the range of people that Andrew has sort of inspired and impacted. We are going to hear from somebody who's known him for 18 years. We're going to hear from his comedian colleagues and friends. You're going to hear actually just from somebody who worked with him through Yuck Yucks. So there's a wide variety of people included in this episode, but I do want to mention that this has been so hard on so many people, and, not everyone who probably wanted to send in a message could. And I totally understand. And Andrew would understand. You know what I mean? It's really tough dealing with this. And we all sort of deal with the grief process in our own ways. Some people like talking about memories and stories and sort of expressing that outwards. Other people aren't ready. And it was not always easy for me making this. I've had to go back through hours and hours of content of Andrew, which I'm so grateful for, by the way, and listen through to find some clips. And while I think it's important that I did that, and a part of me loved doing it, it was also really hard. So to those people who aren't ready, who loved Andrew so much, that's okay. This one was hard for everybody. But like I said, I think it's important to hear the things these people are saying, and also the clips that I picked out from past episodes. I miss him so much. And I know for a fact that he would want me to just get back to it. He would want me to just carry on. So next week, it will be a regular Intoxicated episode. I recorded weeks and weeks ago with my friend Alva. And it's a really good episode. So that one will be out next week on time. Unlike this one, which is late, I know. But it's been rough. That's my excuse, is that it's been incredibly rough. So this episode goes out to the friends and family of Andrew Vaughan, and it is for Andrew Vaughan. And it represents the common threads that you might notice throughout this episode, which is that Andrew was a loving and supportive person in the comedy scene. He was the type of person who wanted to help others, no matter what, no matter how he sort of helped in his own Andrew way. He had nothing but good intentions for this comedy scene because he loved comedy so much. So much. And that's really going to show throughout this episode. He had such a love and commitment to comedy. He was such a pillar of this scene. And another thing too is that I do want to say a big thank you to anyone who's reached out to me personally during this time. I've had a lot of people reach out, like, you know, from close friends to even just people who know me through social media. And I just want to give a big thank you for that. I haven't been myself. I haven't really been talking a lot to people. Like, you know, I've talked to a select few people, but, you know, I've gotten countless offers to talk and have people listen. And again, grief is fucked how you deal with it. And I just haven't been able to do that yet. But I cannot say thank you enough to anyone who's reached out. And I want to give a special thank you to some of, you know, Andrew's friends that are kind of my friends as well, who kind of together in this, we've kind of helped each other through it via a group chat. A group chat that was formed literally the night we all found out and has been going ever since. It's been a huge source of support, and I'm very thankful for that. I did also want to give a huge thank you to Andrew's roommate, Richard, who in all of this craziness had to kind of step into a logistics role right away. And for that, I think all of us are thankful. So big thank you to Richard. He had to be strong in a way that we didn't have to be at the time. And that's very important to mention. And of course, all of Andrew's family, you guys are in our thoughts always. And this episode is for you. I also want to mention Andrew Evans, who did the GoFundMe. Such an incredible job doing that. And that GoFundMe has raised almost $7,000. It raised a total of $6,735. And that is going to Andrew's family. And that's just, again, that just goes to show what an impact he had. So big thank you to Andrew Evans for organizing that. So I'm gonna kind of get right to it. This intro has been tough for me. I just keep rambling. So before I get to this episode, I'm gonna let you know about the links that I'm going to include in the description of this episode. I'm gonna include a link to Andrew's album, Too Fat to Go Kart. I highly recommend checking that out and listening to that. I'm also going to include a link to our YouTube channel, which now has a playlist of everything Andrew Vaughan has ever done on Intoxicated. So all his episodes, all the live streams he was a part of, and of course his set from the 3rd anniversary live show. So I will include that as well. And also a link to his Facebook page, which is now sort of an in memoriam. On there you can read so many posts from his friends and family about Andrew. So check those out. But coming up now, I'm going to play some clips from people who sent them in. We are going to start off with his good friend Corinne. Corinne and her husband Scott sent in a lovely video with lots of stories about Andrew. So this one is about a half an hour. But Corinne has some great stories in here about Andrew, like funny and heartfelt, like just a wide variety of stories. And Corinne has actually known Andrew for 18 years. So a long time to know somebody. So now we're going to get to the first clip from Corinne and Scott.
Hello, Sarah.
Hello.
I don't know if you've met Scott. This is Scott.
Hey.
This is Corinne. Since it's only, I wanted to just do this sooner rather than later, since it's only been 3 days since Andrew died, and I haven't been able to do all the things that people would normally do when they lose someone close to them. Just sitting around, social distancing, not very good for healthy and effective mourning, but I really appreciate that you decided you wanted to collect stories about Andrew. As you probably know, he and I were friends for about 18 years. I'm sorry we didn't get to celebrate our 20-year friend-iversary, but 18 years is a pretty good run. It's literally like half of my life, and half of his, since he was exactly 1 month younger than me, which made his birthday very easy to remember. And anyway, I've written a whole bunch of notes, little stories, how I met Andrew. And of course, Scott's known him a long time too. Introduced Scott to Andrew not long after we started dating back in like 2007, I think.
I think it was at Strange Adventures, like at their old location.
That's where you met Andrew?
I think so.
Really? It wasn't at the Halloween party in 2007?
Oh, no, yeah, you're right.
Okay. Yeah. So you would have been... Anyway, we'll get there. That's like many years into the story. Yeah.
I'm getting ahead of myself.
So anyway, I met Andrew when I was 18. My first boyfriend, John, who I met up in Fredericton where we were going to school, when we were home for a break after we started dating, he took me up to the Blockbuster in Sackville to introduce me to Andrew. Andrew was living with his brother in Sackville at the time. And I liked him right away. Like to me, he was likable from the instant that I saw him. Just warm and kind, and those big kind eyes, right? And anyway, John was living down in Bridgewater with his parents for the summer, so I actually started hanging out with Andrew because Andrew was in Sackville and I was in Musquodoboit Valley and I was working in Halifax, so we would hang out sometimes after my workday, go to a movie, go to the mall, that kind of thing, off and on, which was really nice, right? To make a new friend through your boyfriend and realize that, oh, there's a reason I'm dating this guy. I get along well with his friends. And by hanging out with Andrew, that's how I found out that one of the reasons that I got dragged around to be introduced to all his friends is that they didn't believe that he had a girlfriend. They thought he was bullshitting. And I understand why, because my first boyfriend was definitely a bullshitter. Even when I met up with him years later, nice guy, still a bullshitter, just full of it. Anyway, that doesn't matter. But I do remember too that at that point in time, in like 2002, 2003, that Andrew's life plan was just to find a box of money. I think that was actually his grad prophecy, was just to find a box of money and go off and live his life.
Realistically, like probably the pretty sound financial planning.
Yeah, but it actually happened when a few years later, one of his relatives died and left him an inheritance.
Oh, see,
so he got a box of money. It was enough for him to buy like a really nice MacBook, or not MacBook, a really nice iMac and some other bits and bobs, like an aunt, I think it was. It was actually kind of a sweet story. I remember him telling me that his aunt was one of the first people who met him when he was born, and she thought he was the cutest baby he'd ever seen, so she left some money to him in his will. And he was a very cute kid. I've seen pictures of him from when he was a kid. But, oh yeah, and then later, either that summer or the next summer, so it was either summer 2002 or summer 2003. This is so funny. I remember going to Risser's Beach in Bridgewater with my boyfriend and with Andrew and their friend Bob, and all these guys had gone to high school together, of course. And Andrew was the first person I ever knew who owned a digital camera. And it was one of the ones that took the floppy disks. It was like the Sony first generation digital camera with the full-size floppy disks. And I remember at Risser's Beach, Bob taking this camera from Andrew, shoving it down his pants, and like first generation dick pic, right? Like, and what I don't remember, and I'm sure that somebody else who was there that day could remember better than I can, whether Andrew found it right away or whether Andrew had to find the photo to realize that Bob had taken a picture of his dick with Andrew's digital camera. So, which, yeah, anyway. And then, fall of 2002, Andrew moved to New Brunswick. He moved up to Fredericton. He decided to start going to school with me and with his friend John, who I was dating at the time. And ironically, Andrew finished his degree and John dropped out after 3 years, I think. And Andrew ended up living in New Brunswick for 5 or 6 years, I think. So I remember his first apartment in New Brunswick was up in Fredericton was on, was kind of, I don't remember which direction it was, but it was on the other side of town from where my dorm was. And anyway, I had a car at the time and I drove over to visit him one day. And then didn't I lock my goddamn keys in the car while it was running? Like I went in to get something from him or do something, and I locked my car keys in while it was running. So I had to race back into his apartment, and I didn't even have, I don't think I had a cell phone at the time, or if I did, it was in the car. And we had to scrounge around his entire apartment for every penny of change in that entire apartment, like just a dime here, a penny here. Probably stole some money from his roommate because I needed enough money to get a cab to go back to my dorm and get someone to drive me over with my spare set of keys. But anyway, he saved my butt that day for sure. But backtracking to like 2002, when Andrew moved up to New Brunswick, we became film festival buddies. That was one of the things we had. And of course, I met him at a Blockbuster. I knew he liked movies because I don't know if you could put up with working there if you didn't like movies. But anyway, I wrote for the school paper and I had a pass for the Tidal Wave Film Festival. So I asked Andrew if he wanted to go to some movies with me, and he actually, I think he bought a pass, which, to buy one, I had a free one from the newspaper, but he bought a pass and we went to like 2 movies a night for 3 nights or something, I think. It was, both of us, it was like the first time we saw Hardcore Logo, which was super cool and very defining when you're 19, right? Like that's the right age to see that movie at. And
I killed a fucking goat.
Pardon me?
I killed a fucking goat.
I forgot that line. It's been too long. I just reread the book the other day, but that line's not in the book. The book's good. Movie's better. And what else did we see? I think we both saw Secretary. There was a really good Canadian movie we saw about massage parlors called Rub and Tug. And oh my God, there were so many that we, like the whole time we were friends, we would just intermittently refer back to these movies that I don't think that had happened to either of us ever in our young lives, right? That suddenly we just spent an entire long weekend watching movies constantly that other people who knew more about movies than we had picked out for us to watch. So it was pretty great. Let's see. Oh, and at one point in university, we actually made a pact to move to Mexico together if life didn't work out. Because I was studying Spanish. That was my minor in university. So I kind of wanted to do something with it. I just had this itch. I was like, I just want to get out of here. And I watched, I think, a few too many movies that kind of overly romanticized life in Latin America, because that's what happens when you're studying Spanish. And he was into it. He's like, yeah, we'll just live in Mexico. We'll just go live in Mexico. Yeah. Cost of living's pretty low there. We could probably like hire somebody who wanted to like, work for us to clean the apartment because we're bad at it and young and stupid. Anyway, I'm glad it didn't happen that way, but at the same time, it's kind of a cute memory. And of course, Andrew's first foray into show business was when he was in Fredericton. He had the Johnny Everlove show on CHSR, our campus radio station, our version of CKDU up in Fredericton. And I remember my boyfriend and I, different boyfriend, my boyfriend and I listening on my stereo from my apartment to the very first episode. And like, I don't remember if we emailed in or called in with song requests. Anyway, it was great. I was so proud of him. And around that same time, because it would have been my last year up in Fredericton, he actually won a Valentine's Day poetry writing contest. So we were all given random words that had to do with Valentine's Day, like candles or chocolate. I don't remember what his word was, but he turned his word into this rant about unrequited love on the spot. And it was awesome. He kicked everybody's butts. Mine was stupid. And
I'm sure it was good.
No, trust me, it wasn't. And I had a dumb word. And let's see. And I had gone out west to go to school for a little bit. And then I moved to Nova Scotia, or back to Nova Scotia, however you want to put it, in 2007. And Andrew had already moved to Halifax at that point in time. And that's right when I met you. So you may be able to start talking soon. Feel free. And yeah, so the Rock and Roll Halloween party. So was that the first time you met Andrew, do you think? That would have been
now that I'm thinking about it, yes. Yeah.
About 2 months after we started dating. Yeah. And he was dressed as the sailor guy from Turbo Negro. Yeah. And you were dressed as Alice Cooper. And I was dressed as Slash. Yeah. And what do you remember?
As the night went on, progressively less and less.
Yeah,
That's
you had a
whole
rough
other
night.
story. But I think I remember getting there. I had all like my gear for my costume just in a bag and like in my backpack or something, like the clothes and because you were going to do the makeup.
Yeah.
And like a wig and a weird like top hat and everything. And and I had a riding crop as well.
I forgot about the riding crop.
And so I walked into like the front or back door of the place we're living at, and I think like you were upstairs. Like you just told me, I just come to the door. I'll be upstairs. Like whatever. So I came in, and I think he was already there. Like this is my memory.
And Andrew had just gotten an iPod Touch. It was like the year before the iPhone was released. He couldn't fucking shut up about his iPod Touch. Anyway,
I don't remember that memory. Yeah. Like I'm just like this is my recollection of that evening, which is, as we've established, spotty. And I kind of remember meeting him there, like in the front entrance somewhere, and I think he was already in costume.
Probably,
Which
now that you know him, that's not weird. He comes early and he shows up prepared, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, the first time you meet somebody, they're kind of dressed in like this weird makeup and gay sailor outfit, which is kind of cool. But I wish it meant more people that way. But yeah, and then you like formally introduced us, blah blah blah. We went upstairs. I got my costume, and you did the makeup, and then everybody probably except you got really drunk that night.
Oh yeah, I was in charge. I was not. Yeah.
Andrew, I seem to remember getting kind of weepy at some point, like weepy drunk.
That checks out. Weepy. Yeah.
And
so did you actually? You probably don't remember that part. You were like between the banisters of the stairs as if you were in jail, and you're like.
That was the night I professed my love to you.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, but I kind of went. Part of the Alice Cooper costume was to kind of go a little bit of method acting with it, which is like if you 70 Alice Cooper. So something about purple vomit. Anyway, it's many years ago, and that would have been the first night I met Andrew. Is him dressed in weird makeup as a gay rock and roll sailor.
Yes,
he's perfect and wonderful and beautiful.
Oh, but that was after we got back from Korea, right? So 2010, we got back from Korea. He was living up in Clayton Park, and we were living down in on South Street. And I was about to ask you what he dressed up as for our wedding party, but that was not a dress-up party, so forget I asked that question.
No, he's just wearing a suit.
Yeah. That was. I mean, it was Hurricane Earl, so there's a power outage, so it was really nice that everybody even showed up. But I guess it would have been about a year after that Andrew moved upstairs from us at South Street when Lori and James moved away. And that was so great. I can't even count how many nights that you were working until 9. So I would like get beer from the fridge and maybe like bring poutine home or something. And then go upstairs and like watch a movie with Andrew, or we'd listen to music and shoot the shit. And he always had lots of beer in his kitchen anyway. So, but that was just it was so nice to have someone you like in your own building. That doesn't
there were plenty of nights where you like called me or texted me like, come upstairs.
I'm already up at Andrew's. Yeah. I suppose it would have been around the same time that Andrew first started doing comedy, because I actually went to his very first comedy set. It was at a bar downtown. It might have been at the Lower Deck or something. I don't remember exactly which bar it was. But he was so nervous, but the writing was already really good. It was like you were just rooting for him because you could tell he had good material. Because, he did creative writing and stuff in university. He likes to portray himself as a slacker student, but there were classes that he cared about and put a lot of hard work into, like creative writing. And I just remember him kind of pacing and moving around on stage like a ship on the tide, but the writing was good right from the beginning. So it was really nice to see him develop over the years. And then of course, once he started hosting the show at Gus's every week, by that time we were living on Kennard Street already. Yeah. So Gus's was just around the corner. So I made a point of going like maybe once a month, right? So once every few few weeks to go see him. And after a while, I stopped telling him I was going to go. I would just show up or not and watch to see what the advertisements were for it, because it actually got a little bit annoying that if I said I was going, I would get a text message at 7:59 that said, "Aren't you coming? Are you here yet?" Because it was due to start at 8.
Yeah.
And he would get up at the crack of 8.
And not 1 minute later.
Not 1 minute later. And let everybody know that there was going to be a comedy show in 15 minutes. But I had to apparently be there at 7:59. So, whatever. And then, yeah, just a few more random things on this page. So, not too long ago, I don't know if I told you this, Andrew made a point of either calling me or texting me to tell me that one day when I was zooming by on my bicycle by outside Gus's to go to the gym, that another comedian was like, "Nice rump." Which I really didn't care to hear. And other things that had happened not too long ago, I had to drop everything and go help Andrew when he accidentally put diesel in his car. Did I tell you about that?
You definitely told me about
Definitely
that.
told you
And
about
I think I vaguely remember you telling me about the nice rump story.
Oh, God. Anyway, it's just...
Not a sexy word. Rump.
No, rump, right?
Rump,
like, you stick a fork in a rump.
roast.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't, God.
Yeah.
Old guys get just, yeah.
And of course, I'm really happy that Andrew came over to our housewarming party a few weeks ago since we're in a new apartment. Seemed to have a pretty good time. Some of Andrew's interactions with party guests in the past have been a little bit antagonistic, so it was nice to have a party where everybody seemed to get along and enjoy each other's company, right? Goofy stories and all that. I don't remember any specific anecdotes from the party itself. I think I was too busy playing hostess, but and of course, I'm really glad that a few weeks ago I got to. So the party would have been the last time you saw Andrew, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. I am glad I got to go see him at that. You decided to retire early, and I was going. Remember, I was going to treat myself to an evening downtown, so I went to go make my clock. So it's nice to know now that my record clock that I made was made the last time I got to hang out with Andrew, and then I went to that the Intoxicated podcast show. So Sarah, that I'm sending this video to, is the same woman who does that podcast, and that was her live show. Yeah, and anyway, we got to dance to Daft Punk in the after party, and Andrew and his roommate Richard were both drinking that night, so I got to drive them home. They asked me to just drive them here, and then they would get a cab from here. Like, well, it's probably easy to get a cab. But yeah, there's so many cabs in the West End. I mean, I guess there probably would have been a couple on Quinpool, but anyway, I don't like to drive people halfway, so I drove them all the way home. And in the car on the way home, Andrew and Richard told me about the deviled egg line. I told you about that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So Andrew had this one-liner about deviled eggs that he couldn't get to work with an audience, or didn't think he could get to work with an audience, or tried it once and it flopped. So it's just, the devil really lost his edge when he started making eggs. And Richard borrowed it when he was in line at a buffet for work, and just said it randomly when somebody brought out a bunch of deviled eggs, and apparently got an uproarious response from it. So it just, was it Andrew? Was it Richard? Was the person the problem? Was it the scenario? I guess we'll never know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let's see. Oh, and then Andrew actually told me at the Intoxicated party that as we were dancing to Daft Punk, that I was the person who introduced him to Daft Punk, which kind of warmed my heart. It's like, I forget over the years that I just forced people to listen to music, and I forget who I forced to listen to which bands. But Andrew's an easy mark for that one, because he's always been very open-minded about music and movies both. So music especially, I've always really enjoyed forcing in Andrew's direction. So I actually, if I had to pick two songs that probably remind me of Andrew, this is so egotistical because they're both songs that I introduced him to, but that he really glommed onto. So hopefully Sarah can find clips of them if she's interested. If not, that's fine. One of them is the song Pussy by Brazilian Girls. Have you ever heard it?
I probably have, yeah.
So the chorus actually goes, pussy, 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 marijuana.
Yeah. I have, yes.
And then also the song "Lonely Entertainer."
Lonely entertainer, no one will talk to me.
Who was the artist? Anyway, some unknown country folks, but it's just this spooky, kind of gloomy outlaw country song about a guy who's, I assume, like a honky tonk singer or something, and he's talking about going from bar to bar and going on tour and not really making any money. And I'm sure, I mean, Andrew likes that kind of gloomy outlaw country song. Or sound. I think he always did, but he probably identified with that song because it's probably not too dissimilar from going on tour as a comedian and making $5 and getting a free beer, right? Like, and the very last thing that we were planning that we'll never get to do now, unfortunately, is that Andrew and I were planning a Heat movie night for us to go over to his place and watch the movie Heat with an intermission break, of course, because that's much too long a movie to watch in one go. And then I would have finally got time to meet Bonnie the kitty. So, yeah. But it's okay. 18 years is a pretty good run. So,
Yeah.
A lot longer than I've been friends with a lot of people. So, yeah. Did you want to say anything else? You really only talked about the party.
I mean, a lot of the stuff that you talked about is stuff that like I was present for.
Yeah,
so.
you definitely remember things very differently. I remember broad strokes, and you'll remember like a specific detail about something.
Yeah, I mean, I remember like when we were both living on South Street in the same building. We seen it as like weekly ritual. We go up to his place to watch True Blood.
Oh my god,
Yes.
I forgot about that. Yeah. Holy shit, I forgot we watched True Blood with him.
Yeah.
At least a couple seasons of it.
A couple seasons or something like that, which is just really funny to think about like now. It's just
we all got together and watched this
increasingly bad vampire show.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, I forgot we watched that with him. I think about any TV show that we've watched, and I always think of us just in bed with a laptop, right? Oh, that's so funny. And of course there was the party at his friend Mike's, and Mike knew him longer than I did because Mike worked with him at that Blockbuster, right?
Yeah.
They were friends when Andrew was living in Sackville, and that was the party where he went as the version of Michael Jackson from The Simpsons.
Yes. Yeah.
Which everybody who ever knew him wanted him to do that for years, right? With the hospital gown and all that, and the shaved head. And we were April O'Neil and Casey Jones at the party too. So, yeah. Mike had another party for Halloween like a year or two after that, and we went as the Sizzler sisters from... It was like the laziest, sloppiest costume we ever did from
Kids in the Hall.
From Kids in the Hall, in the bathrobes and
I still have that
wigs.
bathrobe. I used it as a bathrobe.
What did Andrew go as for that party, though? Do you remember? He was there.
He was Bane.
He was Bane.
Sorry? From Dark Knight. He was Bane.
Oh, he was Bane. Of course. I said Bing, like Bing Crosby. I was like, that's a terrible idea for a costume. But he's Bane, yeah. See, you remembered that and I didn't. I just remembered the house coats, so... I remember I met a cousin of mine at that party. There was a Gilroy there, or a guy who was part of my dad's family.
Oh yeah.
I think it might be the same guy who works with my sister in Ottawa now. Anything else you?
No, I'm sure at like 3 a.m. I'll remember some random thing, but it's all off the top of my head right now.
Yeah. It's all right.
Yeah. I just also remember thinking about Andrew that, not so much funny story, just an endearing quality of him is that, he was like everybody, he fucked up sometimes and said things he shouldn't have said or said stupid shit or without thinking things through. But he was, in my experience, always open to, at least especially I know when you would talk to him or I would talk, was open to hearing other points of view, or
100%, right? I think that's one of the reasons that I never
telling him like, if he, okay, dude, here's why you fucked up. You would actually take that and listen to it. Or here's
where I think these other people are coming from, right? I think that's one of the reasons that I never ever considered writing him off, because he always wanted to figure shit out and be better.
Yeah,
Like,
yes.
I got so many emails from him over the years. He's like, okay, I'm really pissed off about this thing, and from my point of view, here's how it is. What am I missing? Right?
Yeah.
So, and as with anything, it's a process. So I could write him back 1,000 words, and he'd really glom on to like 2 of them, just better than 0. So, and then we'd have the same conversation again in a few months on something that was related to that, and bit by bit. One thing I thought has been pretty awesome over the years is it seems like Andrew has got more and more comfortable about criticizing racism, right? Like, it seems like racism really, especially the last few years, has really gotten under his skin, and he's been able to take a comedian's kind of analytical eye to that problem in a really effective way sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, that was kind of where he had some of his sharpest analysis, which is pretty good. It was great to see.
Right.
Anyway, again, thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
It felt really good to brainstorm a little and think it through and talk it through and remember some things. I forgot one thing. Sorry, the audio is not going to be as good this time. We already put our decent microphone away. When I met Andrew's dad, this would have probably been summer 2002 or summer 2002 probably. We were going, I think it was the same trip where we went down to Bridgewater, and there was the dick pic and the digital camera. Anyway, we went to say hi to Andrew's dad at his apartment in Bridgewater, and no word of a lie, when Andrew's dad found out I was dating John, he said, "What are you dating that piece of shit for?" And such began the legacy of the men of the Vaughan family, helping me to steer clear of inappropriate men. But Andrew always really likes Scott.
So next up, I'm going to include 3 clips from some of Andrew's comedian friends. So I'm going to play them all in a row, and it's going to start with Matt Baker, who is fairly new to knowing Andrew. We're going to also have Chris Halef, who's known Andrew about 2 years, I believe. And, of course, Martin Edwards, who was such a close friend of Andrew's and was his former co-host of Mega Comedy Mondays. Those two ran that show together for quite a while. Now Martin is the host, but these two were really good buddy pals, titty-sucking buddies. They just had a really close friendship. So enjoy these messages from Matt, Chris, and Martin.
What up, Intoxicated Podcast? Just making a quick video to commemorate our good friend Andrew Vaughan. Yeah, tough. It's not easy to even make this, to be honest. But I want to do it to kind of pay tribute to him. So here's my Andrew Vaughan story. I was lucky enough to travel coast to coast this summer telling comedy, and every scene we went to, you hear about staples in the scene and legends and the people that helped build the scene and make it what it was. And in Halifax, Andrew Vaughan was one of those names. He was one of those dudes that was known as a heavy hitter, known as a guy that was really bringing the heat joke-wise, and just also a staple in the scene for creating, good comedy and helping build the comics as well. And when we first got to Halifax, we did a show at Gus's on Monday, and that's run by Martin and Vaughan. And I remember when we pulled up, we got out, we walked up to the front door, and I saw Andrew. I hadn't met him at first yet, and just see like this big dude just outside in like a wrestling t-shirt, I'm pretty sure, just smoking cigarettes. He's got like forearm tattoos and chain wallet and like just baggy jeans. And I was like, oh fuck, slick back hair. I was like, this guy's intense. And then I remember, I think we shook hands inside. We didn't introduce ourselves outside. I wasn't sure who he was at first. And as comics, I don't know, we're always a little afraid to meet new people sometimes. But I remember that night, the first time watching him, he just made me like shoot soda out of my nose because he was talking about how when he has sex, it looks like two goalies fighting. And as soon as he said it, I could not contain myself. It was one of the funniest things I heard the whole time, just because there's this big dude just like fucking owning it. And it was hilarious. And we chatted a bit after the show. And then I moved back, flip times from forward, back, whatever it is. And then I moved out to Halifax in December and really got the chance to hang out with Vaughan a few times and work with him, do some shows together and just share mics. And he's just a legend, man. How people talk about him in the Halifax scene is great. Every scene across Canada has like a staple or a person or a couple people that have helped build it to what it is today. And Vaughan is one of those guys. Any comic who's new to the scene or fresh to the scene, like myself, we stand on the shoulders of these guys. We stand on the shoulders of guys like Andrew Vaughan because they've built the scene to where it is so we can tell jokes for other people. So he, 10 years of comedy, wrote an album. And, yeah, it's a tough loss. It's not fun. And, last weekend I got to host Yucks, and he did a guest spot there. And we just hung out with me, Andrican, and Vaughan, and Chris and Finch, and a couple other comics up in the Yuck suite there, and just chatted. And Vaughan was pretty drunk that night. It was just so funny to see such a big dude just act like a fucking kitty cat almost, because he's usually so intimidating. And we was just loose and just doing jokes and chatting. And he was a big lovey drunk too, so it was just funny to watch that. And we had a lot of chats, and he put me on some shows and gave me a lot of opportunities, and super thankful for that. And just a great dude. And I remember when we were leaving that night from Yucks, I was catching the elevator down with him, and we were just he just said some nice things to me, and it was just like, fuck, dude, man. He's just one of those guys that, he doesn't need to go out of his way to say nice things. He doesn't need to say shit because he doesn't. And if he does, then you're like, oh shit, it means a lot. So when we got out of the elevator, we gave each other a big hug, and it was like the first hug that I got from Vaughan was this big sloppy hug from drunk Andrew, and it was it was really good. And then the last time I saw him was in front of Barely. He was just having a smoke, talking to his set. And yeah, Andrew Vaughan's a great dude. I'm thankful that I got the chance to meet him, and I'm happy to know that he's going better places.
Hey, this is Chris Halef, making a video. Just wanted to pay my respects to the great Andrew Vaughan, a guy I've come to know over probably a little under 2 years now. I've known him. He's a stand-up comedian, touring comedian. He was based in Halifax, recently passed away. And I just wanted to make a quick video just to talk about, my favorite Andrew memory. And before I even do, my heart goes out to, anybody who's been impacted by this, his family, his friends, especially in this Halifax comedy scene, who's known him for years. People like Catherine and Dan Henrikin and Daniel and Martin and Ian Black and Steve Mackey and Richard, his roommate, of course. I can't even imagine, man. I don't know him as well as they do, but over the past couple of years, I come to know Andrew a little bit, and I haven't been doing comedy for that long, but he was always really supportive of me from day one, which is funny because I even told him this too. I've done his podcast a couple of times, which is, to this day, I still have no idea why he had me on. Because I'm newer, I didn't think that, I didn't think that I deserved to be on, if that makes any sense. But from day one, he's just been really cool to me, man. And, I always appreciated that. And my favorite memory of Andrew was pretty much right when I started. It was the second time I did Gus's Pub. And everybody sucks when they start, but I was particularly bad. I was a really shitty open micer. I still am, but back then it was even worse, if you can believe it. And I remember it was my second set of Gus's, and I bombed so badly. I was drenched in sweat. I just made all the mistakes. I didn't run the light or anything like that. I think I finished like 3 minutes early, and I didn't even stick around till the end of the show. I was so I was so defeated. I left immediately. I didn't want to talk to anybody, and I just went home and all that stuff. And later that night, I got a message from Andrew Vaughan, and at first when I saw it pop up, because he was the one I asked for the spot, because at the time he was hosting the show. It's now Martin Edwards, but at that time it was Andrew. I messaged him for the spot. I saw a message from him later that night. The notification, I thought like, oh fuck, he's gonna ream me out. He's gonna be like, ah, man, you don't leave, you don't bomb, like, you know, what the hell is this shit? You're awful. This and I thought he was just gonna go off at me. And when I opened up the message, he said, hey man, just wanted to say, like, look, like, I know it wasn't a great set or anything like that, but you know, like there's good ideas there essentially. And he even gave me a tag for one of my... I had this shitty bit about drinking. I'm not even a big drinker, and I thought you had to write, you know, drinking bits or some shit. Like, anyways, I had this bad bit, and he gave me a tag for it, which was really cool. And I was like, oh, fuck, like, you know... And I asked him some advice. I was like, you know, how do I get past, like, you know, psyching myself out and all that shit before I go up on stage? Because I used to be terrified going up. And, you know, he gave me some great advice, and... you know, he didn't have to do that. Like, he could have just gone home and said, like, ah, fuck that guy. I'm not going to message him and all that shit. But, no, he took the time to message me. And I think that was, like, a misconception that some people had about him, which was some people... I said this to him, too, when I met... Like, when I did the podcast with him, you know, a few weeks ago, actually. I said, like, you know, there might be some people who think he's a bit of a grumpy guy. But, you know, he's a softie, man. He was a softie. He was such a good dude and very generous... to newer comics when he saw that they were putting in the effort and taking the craft seriously. You know, he wouldn't just give it up easily, but when he saw that you actually were making an effort to get better and to, you know, follow etiquette and try to make people laugh and this and that, like, he would take the time to, like, you know, give you some praise for it. I've been talking to some of my, you know, my friends in the scene about it, and we were all on the same page. We held his opinion very, very high, very high. And so when he gave us approval, like when he would give us, like, you know, a pat on the back, or recently, like on the podcast, he said some nice things about me, and like, you know, I tried telling him on the podcast, but I didn't, you know, get my point across. I don't think he really understood how much it means, or how much it meant to get, you know, praise from him. And, you know, I just wanted to, you know, make this video and just let people know, like, he was a fucking great guy, man. Great guy. I'm going to miss that guy a lot. He definitely was helpful, and he was nice to me when he didn't have to be. Like, you know, I don't know. I just, I feel for everybody who's hurting. And, you know, Andrew, like, you know, thank you for everything, man. Because, quite frankly, after that bombing at Gus's that one time, that was, like, by the way, like a couple weeks in. And I remember, like, going home, and before I got that message, I remember thinking, like, what are you doing? Like, you know, fucking, this isn't for you. Like, you might be funny with your friends, but you're not funny in front of people. And I was just going to stop. And he sent me that message. And it made me want to keep going. And it took me a while before I kind of found a little bit of a footing, but, you know, it was just because of his, like, you know, his, like, little push, like, hey man, like, you know, keep going, like, you know, don't stop, just try to get better, this and that, made me keep going. And, yeah, and I'm glad I did. Made a lot of great friends, and I'm loving doing this. And I'm just really sad that I'm not going to be able to see that guy anymore. Last time I saw him was at Gus's a couple of weeks ago, and I was closing out the show, and he came, and it turned out to be a great show. Like, I don't care, forget about me, just everybody else. Like, there was like a full audience, and Andrew was hosting that night, and even my little brother, he said, like, because he's seen Andrew a few times, and he loved Andrew. But he was at the show, and he saw Andrew hosting that night, and he said, man, he looked like he was really having a good time up there. Like like really happy. And I was like, yeah, man, like he killed it hosting that night, and you could tell he was just like having a great time with it. And I was really happy he was, because you know, I was closing out the show. I didn't want to fuck it up or anything like that. And I'm just glad that it ended up being an all right show. And at the end of the show, he came up and, you know, he gave me a hug. Like, we never hugged before, but he gave me a hug, and I was like, God damn, man. Like, you know, thank you, man. Like, he's like, yeah, good job. And, you know, I'll see you soon, buddy. And I was like, yeah, I'll see you too. And that was the last time I saw him. So anyways, I just wanted to make this video and, you know, pay my respects. I love the guy. I'm going to miss him. I'm going to miss him a lot. So to anybody who doesn't know Andrew Vaughan, just type in Andrew Vaughan comedian, not the Canadian Press photographer. Andrew Vaughan comedian. Look up his videos. Absolutely hilarious guy, and honestly, he was probably just getting started. You know, he was great. He was great. I'm going to miss that guy. So Andrew, I love you, buddy. Thank you. Thank you for being you.
One night, hanging out at Andrew Vaughan's apartment, also known as Tug Talk Studios, I was getting to his place late on a Friday night. We were drinking, smoking, listening to Third Eye Blind, and I was bitching about work and people on the bus, and all of a sudden I felt guilty. I was like, hey man, I'm sorry for bringing a negative tone to my best friend's place. We're going to be hanging out all night, crushing tall boys. I'm rolling a joint. And he just looked at me and went, with a massive amount of love in his eyes, just looked at me and said, don't worry about it, buddy. Let the hate flow through you. I fucking love you, buddy. When you were down, he knew exactly where you were coming from, and it suddenly didn't even matter anymore.
Okay, guys, so up next we have a clip from Lauren. Lauren actually used to work at Yuck Yucks and had an interesting interaction with Andrew Vaughan regarding some of the posters that she made. This is a really cute, funny story. I love this because it really speaks to Andrew's character of just being a very honest but well-intentioned guy. So big thank you to Lauren for sending this along.
If any of you saw my post yesterday about my beautiful friend Andrew, you would have seen one of my favourite memories with him was when I made new posters for the first club I managed, and he came in and was like, who made these? And I was like, I did. And he said, they're really bad. And I was young and inexperienced and embarrassed and annoyed and all these things, but he was so nice. He told me, like, I understand, like, what you're going for. We chatted about them, and he gave me advice. Anyway, for a little while now, I've been thinking about them. Like, I think about them at least once a week. And I think about how bad they are. I can envision them. And I always thought I should text him and tell him. He probably wouldn't even remembered, but I did. Maybe he'd be proud that, I don't know. I've grown so much. But, anyway, I found the poster. I went back on Yuck Yuck's Instagram and I found it. So, I'll show you guys. Love you, Andrew.
Okay, guys, last up is a clip from Intoxicated Reviews from Corey West, who actually had this on his episode last week, so you might have already heard it, but if not, here it is. Really, really nice message from Corey about how Andrew impacted him and the podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Intoxicated Podcast. I just wanted to start this episode off with a thank you, and that thank you goes out to Andrew Vaughan. Andrew Vaughan, a stand-up comedian, podcaster himself, part of the comedy scene, and not just as a stand-up comedian, but as a person who expanded comedy in Halifax, who really not only elevated himself, elevated everybody around him in the comedy scene, all around just really great guy. And I say a thank you to him right now because he tragically passed away a few days ago, way too young. And it's these things that kind of hit you maybe when somebody passes away that you don't realize till they're gone. But the way that he changed this podcast brand as a whole. I'm talking about Intoxicated Reviews, and especially over the original podcast, Intoxicated, which Sarah created, hosts, as a whole. He had such a footprint on this podcast, both podcast brands. He changed it, and it's. I just want to say thank you now, because I never realized how much of an imprint he has on both our podcasts, me and Sarah's. And I don't mean to talk for Sarah, but I know she definitely feels that way. He was an amazing guy that's gone way too soon. Super funny, and it's kind of funny just thinking back on him. I can just remember, because I know my childhood friend Brian Thompson knew him from the comedy scene, Brian being a stand-up and Andrew being a stand-up. So I've heard of him, and then he went on Sarah's podcast, and I remember being introduced to him, coming from two different sides, two different friends, and two totally different groups, and kind of being intimidated when I met him. And I was like, this just sheerly because I've heard stories about him. I've listened to the podcast that he was on with Sarah. I've even before that, I've seen him do stand-up, but just never met him before. Literally sitting down during he was on a live stream, and I remember being, like I said, very intimidated by him, because I was like, this guy's really funny, and I'm here on this live stream, and I'm not a stand-up. I do this podcast. I have lots of friends who are comedians, but I was like, there was an intimidation factor, especially with a guy like Andrew, who was so funny and so good at just ripping people and himself. And you know what? He was the nicest guy, and that kind of got away. Almost everything went away after I truly met him, and it's just, I only knew him for probably just over 2 years, but it took a fraction of that time to realize how great of a guy he was. And even though it was such a short period of time, I almost really kicked myself for not taking advantage of his kindness, and that may be terrible to say right now, but not taking advantage in a way, after I got to know him, we'd talk, and he always had ideas for the podcast and stuff, and always willing to do something. He just loved creating entertainment on any level. His Boys Club podcast that he started with Travis Lindsay and Dan Hendricken, he put so much into that. As much as he put into his comedy career, he really liked performing, and he really liked entertaining people, and he was just up for it. Anything, every time I run into him, I'd be like, hey, we should do this. Anyway, it's recently, just a quick story, Sarah put together a 3rd anniversary for Intoxicated live show that was going to integrate stand-up comedy and a few skits in there. And I remember Sarah's to me was hey, Intoxicated Reviews definitely has a segment on this show. And I'm like, awesome. And I was trying to get something together and trying to come up with a really good idea. And I was coming up with things here and there, and then I was getting, I saw the lineup of comedians, and I'm like, well, I'm going to be in between all these comedians. I started to get cold feet, and eventually I went to Sarah, and I'm like, you know what, Sarah, there's so many good people in here, and she's putting together, super stressed, but, putting together the show, and had it down to a science, cut minute by minute, what's going to go on. And I saw how great this was shaping up to be, and I told her, I was like, I saw her rundown, and I saw all the great people on it. She had, like I said, she had down to a science, and there was Intoxicated Reviews, my segment, and it changed. I was trying to come up with some good ideas, and I eventually went to her, and I'm like, I don't think I can contribute. It's cool, maybe just give my time to somebody that's funny. And then Sarah totally talked me down. She's like, Intoxicated Review should be on the show. It's like, it's such a part of the Intoxicated brand, and you should do something. And I was like, okay. So then she's like, you know what? I'll check. We'll see. I'll see if Vaughan will be on your segment. And I was still trying to figure out what it was, and I was throwing around crazy ideas. And then, like a day later, she's like, no, Vaughan's in. Like, whatever you're gonna do, he's in on your segment. And I remember, maybe, like I said, I had cold feet because there's so many funny people there, and also, like, I haven't been on stage really. Like, that's not kind of my thing. Like, and the segment went on. We did a Marry Fuck Kill on the 3rd anniversary, and eventually I did have a bunch of other funny people on it. But the moment she told me, the first person to confirm, she's like, yes, Andrew Vaughan's going to be on it. I can't explain the wave of anxiety just kind of went away that I had kind of on me. Like, and it's this weird thing where I'm just like, I know he's going to make it funny, and I know he's the type of guy, like, this may sound weird, but like, when you have like a person who's that funny, I know he'll go out there and make it good for everybody. He's not going to try to steal the show. He's just going to make it as funny as possible. And the way I kind of envision in my head is like, no matter how bad I'm going to make it, he'll drag me through to make it funny. And he did. It was, we had some other funny, like really funny people in there, but like almost out of the gates, like just like the moment we're on stage, joke. And then I think I came in and tried to give a couple quick anecdotes to be funny, and I got like some indifferent chuckles, and then he just ramped it up again and saved me. And yeah, it's just the type of guy he was. And and I know I truly feel terrible. This is a terrible thing that happened. And I know he has some amazing friends, some really close friends, and also family that are hurting right now. And I feel so bad for them, and I know there's nothing I can say that's going to make it better. And also right now it's such a hard time with everything going on in the world with the COVID-19 virus, that people just can't be together, or we can't celebrate Andrew Vaughan at this point in time. And I know that's so hard, but hopefully, and I say hopefully, but it definitely will be when we get a chance to all be together and celebrate the man. I think a lot of people, the Halifax comedy community as a whole, his friends, his family, can start healing. I really, as we're all kind of socially distancing right now, and just kind of being isolated, I found myself the other day just looking back on a few messages that he sent me, and it was one of these weird things. Like, we were only, like, at this point we did a few live streams together, and out of the blue, just I get a message from him, and he basically was just like, hey, have you seen this terrible movie? I think you should do it on your podcast. And it was just kind of this weird thing that started this rabbit hole of us just going back and forth about crappy movies that we liked. And that continued once in a blue moon, I just get a random message being like, from Vaughan being like, hey, I just watched this terrible movie. You should totally do it on the podcast. And it was stuff like that. Like, it was just kind of a joke, and it was kind of the one kind of thing we bonded over. But even in that way, when I'm trying to say thank you to him, like, he watched the movie knowing, like, he just, in a weird way, like, yeah, he's trying to just say, hey, what's up? Check this out. But also, I took it as, hey, here's something to help you out. This is going to be good. Like, I just watched this thing and thought about you. You know what? Go out there and, like, do this podcast. And from sitting back and watching Facebook, looking at Facebook and seeing the messages from people, the people that surrounded him, the comedians that surrounded him, he really was so encouraging to them. And in a weird way, I took that as him being encouraging to me. And, he was, he actually sent me, like, looking back on those messages, he sent me this great idea that I kind of half forgot about because I'm just terrible at stuff like that. But I looked at him like, no, I have to do this now. It's such a great idea. And so I will do that on the podcast eventually at some point. Another thing I want to mention is that Andrew Evans has started a GoFundMe for funeral expenses and memorial expenses for his family. If you can, it goes a long way right now. Also, obviously, I don't really want to also speak for what I think Andrew would want, but at this time, just knowing him as a comedian, as an entertainer on many platforms, he probably would hate that he's making this many people sad. So maybe let him make you laugh he's got lots of stuff online to watch, but also he has a CD. I know it's on iTunes that you can buy. I don't know where the money goes at this point. Hopefully it goes to a good place. And you can buy his comedy album, Too Fat to Go-Kart. Also, it is on Apple Music to download. It's impossible for the people that know him, and maybe even for people who didn't know him, to not be sad. But at least give him the opportunity to make you laugh again. And check out some of his stuff online. This episode is dedicated to you, Andrew, and thank you so much for the positive that you gave to me, to Halifax, to laughter in Halifax.
Okay, guys, so I hope you enjoyed those really nice messages for Andrew from some of his friends. And now we're going to get into some clips from the podcasts that he's done on Intoxicated. I had a lot of footage to go over, so there's only about 4 clips, but I tried to pick ones that you guys would really like. Some really good sort of tidbits of knowledge about comedy and really nice clips of Andrew. So obviously I recommend listening to all the episodes that he's done because there's a lot and they're all amazing. It's funny because when I was putting this together, I kind of had this moment of thinking about what my favorite memories of Andrew are. And I realized that a lot of them are on this podcast and were caught on film, bonding with him and learning about comedy and just shooting the shit for hours about things, is definitely my favorite memories of him. And this first clip is from a more recent episode. It is from episode 145. 2-part episode that we did. This clip in particular is from the first part of the episode, which is all about comedy and sort of harsh truths and lessons learned in comedy. And there's tons of really good insight in this episode. It is very honest insights. It's things that I'm going to carry with me for a long time. So I think that this clip happened towards the end of the episode and it's a really good one. And especially if you're in comedy, I think you will appreciate this next clip from episode 145.
I always say stand-up is not therapy.
Yeah.
But stand-up can be very therapeutic. Does that make sense?
Yes. It shouldn't be the soul.
I think you have some things in your life. It's not that I don't want you to never do stand-up. I think you have some things in your life that you need to get your head around first.
Before doing it.
And I'm just telling you.
I love the carefulness of what you're saying.
No. I'm just trying to think of the words I want to say. Like I don't think stand-up is going to help you with those problems.
Yeah, and I agree.
And I'm not saying that that's why you would do it. I'm just saying that, like, I would rather see you try stand up from an honest desire to do it.
Yeah.
As opposed to things are kind of shitty right now. Hopefully this will make things less shittier.
No, 100%.
And that's my only objection. My only objection for you doing so.
But I've come to that conclusion on my own. Is the crazy thing about it. And that's not to say that I don't think I could if I really tried. It's to say right now, the ideas I have and how I want to work in the comedy scene is to help enrich it, help it grow, help giving comedians a chance to come here and do this, to get themselves out there. I want to be the behind the scenes person. I don't think I have a place on the stage.
I think you could be a very good promoter, because I think you have the personality needed to contact places and be a front person.
Yeah.
But you have also been so ingrained in the scene that you understand the struggles comics go through.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't fuck anybody, and you wouldn't, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to say don't ever do stand up. What I'm trying to say is, like, I don't think you're in the right place to start now.
No. And you've said it before, and off mic, so I'll say it for you on here. But you've said you've been in this a little too long for it to be bad.
Well, that's the other thing too. It's like we're such good friends. If you're gonna go out and eat a dick, like, I'm gonna have to tell you went out and ate a dick, and that just makes it awkward.
Well, that's just it. I don't, and I also just think that there's a lot of things I want to do still that I'm focused on, and I see it in the same way as, honestly, like, dating and shit. It's the furthest thing from my mind right now. I got so much.
What do they say about dating?
So much going on.
You don't date until you don't expect dating to fix the problems in your life.
No.
So don't expect stand-up to fix the problems.
And
I'm not saying that's what you're doing. I'm just saying, like,
no, I genuinely, I don't think it will, and I don't feel comfortable yet. I don't think what I have is that good.
I don't want to see you do what I see a lot of young women do when they get into stand-up comedy. And this is going to be a little controversial because I said young women. I don't want to see you
sex
use
material.
this. No, it's not even sex material. You do as much sex material as you want. It's like, I don't want to see you use this as a tool to talk about your frustrations with dating as stories on a weekly basis.
Yeah, no.
I don't want to see another fucking female comic get on stage. And you know what? Fuck it. I let's backtrack. I don't want to see another female or male comic get on stage and tell me what about they did this week. Yeah. Unless you're Travis Lindsay.
Yeah.
Or you're unless you're an established comic who knows how to take that story and twist it into something that's funny.
Absolutely.
This is not Live Journal Live, where you fucking read your thoughts. This is not therapy.
No.
This is not at the core, these are jokes.
These are jokes.
At the core, these are jokes.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry if you wrote 8 paragraphs in your journal and you think that's a set. It's not.
It's not, yeah. And I think too, being the person who's like, okay, I'm not going to use stand-up as therapy. I'm going to go get real therapy, figure myself out, get that self-awareness, and make it smarter so that when I do it, it comes from a smarter place.
Like, I always wonder what's newer comics. Like, obviously, I didn't know what setup punchline was when I started stand-up comedy.
Right.
But me and Andrew Evans were talking about this the other day. When I started writing comedy, when I decided I wanted to try it, I started writing comedy. I instinctively knew what that was, even though without being told. Because I watched a lot of comedy. I mean,
you consumed a lot of
when
it.
I'm talking, people don't understand. Like, and I think I've said this here on this podcast, like, the reason why I fucking love comedy so much and why it means so much to me is because my entire life I was wondering what was that thing that meant so much to me. And when I finally fucking found it, it fit like a glove. Like, it just clicked and everything started making sense. Yeah. Things started like lining up in my brain that I never even thought of. And I started thinking back to the first stand-up comedy I ever listened to. I did a radio show in university where I played stand-up comedy albums.
Right.
Like, and when I did that, I didn't play them because I wanted to be a stand-up. I just liked stand-up.
You just loved it.
So it was once I started doing it, I went, that's why you did it. That's why you watched this bit over and over again. That's why you watched this special over and over again. That's why you had that radio show. That's why you did all these things, because you fucking love it.
Yeah.
That's why it did. And I just want to see that passion in other people.
Right. And the effort.
And when you tell me that, like, and sometimes I miss it, and sometimes I have to, like, honestly, like, fucking when you had Adrian Gabriel on, like, I learned so much about that woman.
Yeah.
That made me go, like, yeah, there is shit there that I didn't see.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, and she was talking about her early comedy stuff that she liked, and I was like, oh my God, that's kind of similar.
Right.
She brought up Eddie Murphy. I mean, I talked extensively about how Eddie Murphy and Andrew Dice Clay were the two comics that made me fall in love with comedy.
Right.
They're not my two favorite comics of all time.
Right.
But they're the two that made me fall in love with comedy.
Right.
And I just want to see that in other people. I just want to see that passion, that fucking desire, that knowledge of the history, that watching. And it's not, well, it makes me feel good, so I go and do it.
Yeah.
I
know. Yeah, and then there's
a volunteer at an old folks home. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I just...
Yeah. Be an Instagram influencer.
Yeah.
Do that.
Yeah.
But would you say, because it's interesting how some people, it's interesting the different trajectories that comics can take, because sometimes people are like, I just thought I'd try it, and then I totally fell in love with it, and then
that's fine too.
And then there's
no
another
problem with someone who fucking is like, you know what? I'll honestly admit I don't have a huge history of love with it, but then I started doing it, and then I went back in time and I watched this and I watched this and I did this and did that. I'm like,
it still happened. It didn't happen in the same way.
It happened in a different way. Not all of us live the same life.
I just don't think it's, if you're someone who wants to do it consistently, wants to get better at it, wants to eventually start getting paid for it, how could you not do your research? I hate to say research, that's probably not the right term.
Yeah.
But learn more about it. Watch more specials. Open yourself up to other types of comedy.
Yeah.
Like, because the more you do that, the more it's going to craft that skill, and you will get better.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
that's just how I feel, right? Like,
and like you said, the actual passion for comedy, not the passion for attention.
I guess my problem is I relate comedy way too much back to wrestling.
Yeah,
like I've been a wrestling fan my entire life, and I've read a lot of like stuff about wrestling, and I've listened to interviews with wrestlers. And one thing a wrestler hates is a guy that walks into the locker room and they know that guy just wants the fame.
Right.
They don't want to put in the hard work. They don't want to pay the dues.
And you know what that reminds me of? I'm going to call it out. I don't care. We're at the end of this long episode. If you're listening to this,
you earned it.
You earned it.
I'm not going to co-sign
If you're
this.
a fucking person who has done a couple mics and you put comedian on your Instagram or your Tinder,
you're a piece of shit.
I don't.
Stolen valor, you're a piece of shit.
Don't do that.
No.
That is
First
ridiculous.
off, I'll add to this. If you aren't a touring headliner, delete your fucking comedy account. I don't give a fuck about your comedy account. I'm not going to follow it. I'm not going to like it unless you're a fucking touring headliner. There's no fucking reason why you should have a fucking Facebook page or a separate Instagram account. It's bullshit. You're an open fucking micer. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Okay, I got too mean there. I mean,
this is like truth bombs.
It is like, but that's humility. You gotta have humility. You gotta be humble.
Oh, the humility
humble,
is and I mean that's yeah.
And again, you know what? That whole rant I just did about. Don't listen to me. Keep your page.
No, I wouldn't say that.
Me.
No,
who gives a shit?
That's your opinion.
It's my opinion. It does.
Here's the thing. I've said this, like, you've been around the scene a long time. You've been doing comedy a long time. You got to give yourself a little more credit. You know some things.
But I just feel like I come off as just a crotchety fucking angry man.
Own that you know it.
Yeah.
Own that you own it. Own that you know it. That's a hard.
And don't get me wrong, these are not things that I came up with. These are lessons I learned by watching, by being around, by being directly told. These are things I've learned. When I say don't have this or don't do this or do this and don't do that, I ain't just pulling it out thin air. These are things I've learned and I'm trying to pass on to you.
People would agree with you.
Yeah.
Other comics at your level would agree with you.
Hopefully. Yeah.
I think so. Oh. Like, but this is the divide, right? There's a clear divide between when you're new versus when, and to those new people, they're the new freshmen in high school who are scared to talk to the senior. They are from their perspective, they're terrified.
Yeah, but I try to do my best to be as open as possible. Like, you want to have a conversation with me about,
Right.
where you're at. I want to be as open as possible. But you have to understand, in that openness, there's going to be some
things
truths
that you don't want to hear.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's what you would get if you were to have an employee review. Like, when you work somewhere and you have a review. It's the same thing.
Do you want to be spoon-fed something, or do you want a harsh, you know what I mean? Like, the only way you get better is harsh reality. Spoon-feeding something, sugar-coating something is not a way to get better.
Not a way to do it.
It's just not how you get better. And trust me, if anyone hears me say this shit and they're like, "Oh, why is it got to say this shit?" I've had moments where it's been painful lessons to me. I've had those too.
Yeah.
But I've understood that I needed that lesson. It just hurt.
Yeah.
But what's Buckley's? Tastes awful, but it works.
That episode that I listened to today with the psychologist on Dak Shepard, they loved him so much and they were very complimentary to him. And he was like, okay, so we're going to end the episode. You need to tell me one piece of critical feedback that's not positive. And they're like, we can't think of anything. We'll have to put it in later. And
was that just shield because they don't want to?
Well, that was it. And he was like, that's not fair. You need to give me that. It's not... Like, you need to give me that one piece.
Your wife has a better career. I love the two of them. Why am I shitting on them?
No, it was the guest. So the guest was the one asking for feedback.
Oh, it was the guest.
Yes, the psychologist was,
okay.
because they were very much so like, thank you so much for coming on.
That would make more sense from a psychologist thing. Okay, it totally makes more sense. Yeah.
And then they had to think of something that was a little more critical and negative to give them.
Okay.
This is the thing though. Like, I'm like this with friends. Like, I love talking about what's wrong with us. I love talking about that. I think that's a great thing to talk about. Not everyone wants to actually face that though.
And you know what? I ultimately just want comics to be as good as they can be. I want the shows to be as good as they can be. I want the scene to be as good as it can be.
That's where all of this is coming from.
It all comes from a place of love. Doesn't come from a place of hate. I say a lot, I hate this comic and I hate this comic. Hate's just a word. It's not a feeling to me. It's just a word of frustration. Even if your style of comedy when you're newer is not my style of comedy, I am able to go, that person is doing good.
And then that, in a way, is a really good compliment because that says you proved me wrong a bit.
Yeah.
You proved me wrong to the point where I had to say, I
have
right. What you're doing works.
Absolutely no problem being wrong. My problem is I want people to give me the opportunity to be wrong. You can't have an opinion anymore. You have an opinion about anything, and then all of a sudden people are like, you shouldn't say that. You shouldn't. It's like, prove me wrong. Just prove me wrong. And if you prove me wrong, I'll tell you were right.
Okay, guys, so this next clip is from the very first episode I ever did with Andrew, episode 76. This is a story he tells all about when his cat died, which is kind of a famous Andrew Vaughan story. If you are friends with him, you know he loved his cat that died. And then a comedy show actually happened in honor of the cat. It's a really good story. But this story also kind of leads into some discussion we had about joke writing and his process and all of that. And also a really good part where he talks about his family, his mom and dad. So I thought this was a perfect clip to kind of show the softer side of Andrew Vaughan and that big heart of his. So enjoy this next clip from episode 76.
But I don't know, man. Like, my cat died in October, and I've been I can't even look at pictures of other cats without feeling like I miss my fucking cat. To me, it's just I live a weird. Everyone's like, get another cat. I'm like, yeah, but you know what? There's a part of me that misses having a cat, but there's another part of me that if there are days where I'm like, shit, it's 6 o'clock and I've been home all day. I got to get home, spend time with the cat, make sure that she's cool. That I don't have that in my life anymore. So there's a part of me that's like,
it makes me want to cry. I do have a cat.
I had this cat for 15, 16 years. I love this cat to death. And this was a great ass cat.
Hard.
Yeah, man. It was I
can't imagine.
When I woke up one morning and she was like, I'm so used to her being like right there when I wake up. I'm sorry if I'm making this too depressing. You can tell me to.
There's tissues there for a reason.
But so she wasn't in my bed, and like I was petting on the like, and she didn't come, and I'm like, it's kind of fucking weird. I know she was alive, but she wasn't moving around that much. Then my mom comes over. I call my mom. My mom comes over, and my mom starts going, I think any moment, man, I think she's gonna be done. And then my mom puts like a blanket over her, like a towel, and my mom goes, yeah, I think she died. And I'm like, Mom, I guess her eyes are open and she's still breathing.
What the fuck? Wait, she put a blanket over the cat?
I'm like, literally, I could see her chest moving up and down. Like she's not. Mom's like, I don't know. I think. I'm like, are you trying to kill her before she's dead? Like I'm like, fuck off. So then my mom was like, well, what do you want to do? You want to wait till she dies, or you want to take her to the vet? And I was like, well, let's take her to the vet, see what the vet says at least, right?
Just get it checked out.
So we took her to the vet, and the vet was like, we were there 2 weeks ago before, because she'd lost a ton of weight, and I couldn't figure out why.
That's like a first sign kind of thing.
And the vet was like, yeah, her heart rate's really slow. She's like, she will die eventually, or we could, do the thing and hurry it up. And like, I was an emotional wreck, just like.
Did you put her down?
Oh, we put her down. And I was like, tears coming out of my, she's like, do you want to be in the room when it happens? I was like, fuck no. Like, I was like, my mom stayed in the room, but I was like, I can't, I
often think about that because I have a cat, Mindy. I don't know where she is, but I'm just like, I just don't. Yeah, it's her. I want her to outlive me.
Yeah,
I know she will.
Oh yeah, and
it's just such a sad thing.
So I go out in the waiting part of the vet, and I'm bawling my eyes out, and then like literally there's a guy at the cash register talking to the girl, like, and he's like, he had to put his family dog down that day.
Fuck.
And he was like, yeah, I just don't know how I'm going to tell the 6 and the 8-year-old at home that the dog's not coming home. And that sort of like, it didn't stop my sadness, but it made me go like, fuck. He's got to go home and tell 2 little kids that the dog's not coming. You know what I mean? Like, I just got to go home and deal with the fact.
You just have to deal with the sadness yourself.
Exactly.
And be alone with it.
And I was supposed to do I have a show every week at Gus's Pub Monday nights. And so I was supposed to do it that night because she died on a Monday. And it was so weird. I had this Halloween thing. Like, it was like I was going to dress in costume. I had bought snacks to give out, like, at the thing. And I contacted my co-host Martin Edwards, and I was like, man, I can't make it tonight. You're gonna have to do it. He's like, absolutely. I found out they turned it into what they called the Dead Cat Show.
What?
Where like every comic got on stage and talked about my cat and the fact that it was sad that I wasn't there. And Travis gets up and he goes, I just want to let you guys know, I fucking hate cats. He goes, but I loved that cat so much. And I was just like, when I found out he said that, I was like, oh, you sweet son of a bitch.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And so I sat at home eating a whole box of fun-sized cheesies.
Cheesies
while listening to like I remember, you ever hear that Warren Zevon song, Keep Me in Your Mind a little while, Keep Me in Your Heart for a little while?
No.
Yeah, it's Warren Zevon's a great rock and roll artist. When he was dying of cancer, he wrote a song about like, just remember me for so like, I'm listening to this song crying, eating cheesies. My roommate comes out, he's like, what the fuck, man? I'm like, the cat's dead. Just give me a night.
I don't blame you, and I would 100% take a day off work. Like I would do the exact same thing as what you did.
Yeah, but I love that. It was the first pet I've ever had that was like super fucking attached to me. Like, I've always loved cats, but they're always very super independent. Like this one was like,
I was just like, I don't care.
This one was like,
was
I'm
she
on
a lap
you at all.
cat?
Yeah, she's on me all the time. She was a barn cat when they found her, right? So she was like abandoned. So she was like she wants to know you're there all the time type of shit. So, but I had 15, 16 years, so it's all good.
Yeah, that's a good life.
Yeah. That's
a good fucking life.
Yeah. And I got a 3-minute bit about it, so in the end, it all worked out.
You got some comedy. What's your process with comedy? So like, how do you obviously it's based around your life.
Yeah.
But how do you write jokes? I guess is my question.
It's 2 different ways that I can write jokes. Most of the time my writing jokes comes from something that I'm thinking in the moment, then I'm like, how can I make that longer? Here's a perfect example of like, it's just a new joke that I'm working on. I mentioned I went to a gay wedding the other day. And I did this, first time I did it on stage was the other night, and it went pretty well, so hopefully it's like, but I got to build on it. It's just that I was like, well, the part that didn't go well was I was saying about how like I like saying it's a gay wedding because I like seeing the reaction on people's faces, and if you give me a look like you just smelled like moldy bread, or then I'm like, I don't want to talk to you. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, you're not.
But you could go, oh, so cute.
And so I did this thing where I said, I was like, you can't joke at a gay wedding though. You just can't. People are too sensitive. It's like I said, this woman came up to me. I didn't know who she was, and Justin and James are getting married. She's like, are you here for Justin or James? And I just went, neither. I just felt somebody should speak for the Lord. And I was like, that's how you don't get invited back to a gay wedding. So to me, that's the joke writing is like, I never actually said that to somebody, but I threatened, like I told my friends, like, this is what I should tell everybody when I get there. This is that I'm here to, or that I only came to boo, or like just something like, ridiculous.
It's an aspect that you add to it.
Yeah, so like that thought pops in your head, and then you go home and you're like, how can you expand on it? How can you do tags to the joke? How can you do callbacks? Shit like that. Or there are times where I will sit down and be like, all right, I got my phone's turned off. I'm not at home. I got like a big mug of tea or coffee.
Yeah.
And then you just
sit down and you intend to do it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Damn. But like, I always wonder about the aspect of it of like, I might write stuff in my phone that I think is funny, but it's like, how the fuck do those things transition into one another?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like that's so much of it.
I think sometimes to be completely honest, sometimes the shit that gets laughs, I don't even know why. You know what I mean? Like I think it's funny when I wrote it. Right. But I'm like, I don't know why anybody else would think it was funny.
Right.
Like,
it's so much testing.
Yeah, it's the best analogy I ever heard about stand-up comedy when it comes to like, and this is what people got to fucking understand that come to open mic comedy shows. If you're not going to a comedy club, you're going to an open mic comedy show. And if you're going to an open mic comedy show, you're going to hear some rough shit. Mm-hmm. You're going to hear shit that's really good. You're going to hear shit that's dog shit, and it's not good. But if we started a band tonight, we would practice forever. And then when we did our first show, say we were doing 5 songs, we'd have those 5 songs ready and we nail those 5 songs. You can't do that in comedy.
No, fuck no.
You have to, your practice is in front of other people.
Yeah.
And a person I used to know said it best. She said, if the Rolling Stones had to fucking, from the minute they started, had to do every practice session in front of an audience, they may have never became the Rolling Stones.
So true.
We're comedy, we have to do that, right?
You have to do that.
So people come to open mics, they hear shit, and they go, "Oh, that offended me." Well, this might not be done. It's not a like shut your mouth. Like I get it. I hear shit all the time at open mics that I find to be poor taste. But those people,
it's just
don't
not
last.
for you.
Yeah.
But don't. To maybe someone else in the room, it's for them.
Yeah.
You know, like...
Yeah, I try to make a point of letting the audience know, like, you're going to find some shit really funny, you're going to find some shit not so funny.
Yeah.
But that's the point of tonight. You go to Yucks on the weekend, you should find all of it funny. And if you don't, that's the comic's fault. You know, like...
Yeah, that's very, very true. What about bombing? Is there an art to bombing?
Oh, bombing is so much fun. It is, man. Like... It's so stupid to say that. Like, why would you ever say not doing well at what you're supposed to be? The thing, it's fun for me now because it doesn't bother me anymore. I'm like,
right, you've been doing it so long. How long have you been doing comedy?
Almost 9 years.
Crazy.
So like I started. Well, I'll be entering my 9th year in a couple weeks. So I started August 31st, 2010.
Wow, you remember the date?
I remember the date, especially because August 31st is my mom's birthday.
By the way, okay, you mentioned your mom. When I was
a very close
watching
relationship with my mom.
The roast today, I had it just playing,
and
I thought it was fucking great. And it like YouTube autoplayed like one of your other videos.
Oh, okay.
And I saw the video of like I made a mother's
cut of my
cut.
album where it's just like It goes, how's everybody doing tonight? Anyway, you guys have been great. Have a great night.
I laughed so fucking hard because I was just like, I relate to that so much.
I love my mom. My mom to me is one of the greatest fucking people I've ever like my mom. Like my dad is a great dude. My dad is, but my dad loved my mom didn't think she was gonna have any more kids when she started hooking up with my dad. Like I have a brother and a sister, but my brother's 10 years older than me. My sister's 12 years older than me.
Oh wow!
My dad was about 5 years younger than my mom, so it was kind of like one of these. They were fucking. They were fucking for the fun of it. Like, I mean, I don't. It's weird to say, but it's true. They were fucking. They just liked. They liked fucking each other, and she got pregnant. And my dad always told me she bawled her eyes out in the fucking doctor's office when our doctor told her she was pregnant. And my dad's always been a part of my life, and he's always tried to help out financially as much as he could. But he's been a physical laborer his entire life. There's not a lot of money in that shit, you know.
Right.
And my mom, at one point, was working a job, going to school, and raising 3 kids basically on her own. Because the other 2 kids' dad fucked off, wasn't even in their life.
Okay.
At least my dad was in my life, you know.
Right.
Are
they still together? Your mom and dad?
No, they're super close. Like they're super good friends. I don't know. I've always just like really admired what she sacrificed to make not even just our lives, but everybody around her's life work really well.
A level of selflessness.
Yeah.
That is like there's nothing like
now that being said, I refuse to let her listen to my stand-up comedy. That's why there's the mother's cut.
My mom just recently found out about the podcast. I kept it from her for a long time.
Oh, I could tell my mom I do a podcast. She would have no idea what that is. And I would just be like, we're leaving it at that. And then my dad was up recently because I had him up to visit. I bring him up once in a while, and he saw my mics and my stands and everything. So what's that for? I'm like, it's a podcast I do. And he goes, what's a podcast? I'm like, it's like online radio. And he's like, okay. My
Easy.
dad, I feel first I want to say I'm sorry if I bogart a lot of the time. I just like talking, but
dude, this is what the show is.
I'll tell you this funny story about my dad.
Away. Yeah, tell me that.
I did a show in Bridgewater, where I'm from, on my dad's birthday when he was living in Bridgewater, and there were 10 people in the audience. And my dad already told me he wasn't going to come down that night. He had seen me do stand up before, but he was like, I'm probably going to be drinking earlier during the day. I'm not going to come down and see the show. So I'm headlining the show in my hometown with 10 people, because clearly I was loved and respected in my hometown, and a huge draw. So I get on stage and I go, hey, it's my dad's birthday. We should call him up on my speakerphone and sing happy birthday to him. So I get my speakerphone up, put it up to the microphone, get dad on the phone. Hey. I go, hey. He's like, aren't you doing a show? I'm like, yeah, I'm on stage right now. I just thought we would all sing happy birthday to you. My dad, who's drunk, goes, just do your act. I went, okay. My dad also is very super supportive and loves me, but in that moment he was like, just do your act. I was like, fair enough.
Like, I don't want any part of this.
No, he's like, I would have come to the show if I wanted attention. Otherwise, go fuck yourself.
Oh my God. That's hilarious. Oh, it's tough though.
Oh yeah.
It's a weird thing with parents because I don't know. Like, are you close with your parents?
Yeah, I'm very close.
Okay, see, I'm not.
I'm I see my mom many times a week. Like, she got a fucking key to my apartment. Just
really? That's so cute.
And I talk, I don't see my dad as much, but like I do love my dad's like one of those guys that's just like he wants to crush beers and get all lovey dovey and be like, oh, you're my best friend and like blah blah blah. And no, I love both of them, man. They my dad worked 30 some years a job, physical labor, busting his ass to get fired because he was too old to keep doing it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
it's a work ethic.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. I don't know. I respect the fuck out of them both so much. It's hard for me to tell them that. It's hard for me to even ask advice or support from them sometimes because you're just like, I was having a conversation with a friend about it the other day. So because the issue is like you don't want them to feel like they like if you need like, hey, I need $200, can you help me out? You don't want them to feel like they failed as a parent.
No, that's exactly it.
Because they're supposed to get you ready to the point where you're not in that position.
Where you're not asking for money
to
get you out of binds.
Mm-hmm.
But like sometimes you gotta.
Yeah,
I would rather fucking go to parents than go to friends.
Yeah.
To be honest, I would never ask. Yeah. If I was in a bind, I would not want to ask friends for $200.
Yeah. And the thing is, like me and my dad, I'm my dad's only kid, and like my mom and I are really close. And I just, I don't know. Like I think when she got over the fact that she was gonna have another baby at that age, like she had a little more money to do things for me than she did the other two.
Right.
Like not a crazy amount, but like she took me to Disney World when I was 12.
Wow.
Which is like she wanted to take the other kids, but she could never afford to do it.
That makes sense.
You know what I mean? Like so like and now they're 20. Like if I was 12, they were 22, 24.
Right.
Like, so you know, whatever, right? Like
well, yeah. They might, but
well, they've gone like I don't know if my sister's actually gone. My brother's in the Navy and he makes good enough money so he can go as much as he fucking wants to go. You know, like but I don't know. We just have this really like I don't know what it is. I don't know. I have a hard time talking to her sometimes about things that I would like to talk to her about. But like when I do need to ask for advice or something, she's very like, you know, like,
okay.
Yeah, she's very, very, very smart woman.
Okay, guys, the next clip I have for you is from episode 109, where Andrew and I are talking about self-deprecation and just the amount of work that goes into comedy off stage, as well as we kind of touch on Andrew's habit of buying things online, which if you know Andrew and if you've been in his apartment, you will understand. But you're also a self-deprecating person.
Yeah.
And so am I.
Yeah.
Do you get a lot of people telling you to stop being self-deprecating?
Not as much anymore as I did when I first started comedy. Like,
yeah.
When I first started, it was like, oh my God, you really don't like yourself. Like,
right.
I mean, I think it's it's just a disarming technique. It's like, I'll make fun of myself so somebody
before
else
you
doesn't.
get exactly.
But I don't think that. I don't know. I don't think anybody tells me not to. I mean, now I'm in a group where it's just, of people where it's just like, who can make fun of the other person the best. So it's kind of hard to be like, you know, like you should tone it down, dude. Sounds like you don't like yourself. Like it's like
yeah.
Yeah.
I like that there's I like being friends with comics because they get it. Like they get the self-deprecation and like the jokes. And like when I do it with other friends, they're just like, yee. And I'm like,
oh, I hate it when people don't
like
when
that.
people think it's like, oh, that's sad. It's not sad. It's a fucking joke.
It's a joke, exactly.
Shut the fuck up.
Like, but is there any truth in the saying that there's like a small kernel of truth in self-deprecation?
Yeah,
jokes?
but I mean, but what is the small kernel of truth? Like,
well, like you making suicide jokes all the time.
Yeah, but it's because the small kernel of truth is we could all check out at any moment, and I'm fine with that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like. If
so it's not as depressing as what people think it might be.
I mean, I have a lot of things I would like to do in my life, and but if I did die tomorrow and there was some sort of afterlife, which is not going to be, but if there was. And I had to look at a book with some old fucking white dude, which there's not, but let's just say that there is. And I'd have to go over everything that I did in my life and say, do you feel satisfied with what you did up to this point? I would say, yeah, there's some things that are left undone, but I'm satisfied.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, there's still a lot of stuff I want to do, but I don't have...
well, you've been in a career doing something you love for
9 years.
For 9 years.
Yeah.
That in itself...
Yeah.
Is amazing.
Yeah.
Because I've
never been happier since I started being a comic.
And like, do you feel like it's work?
No. I said that to somebody the other day that I hate that corny sentence of
you'll never work a day in your life if you're happy.
But I don't feel like I'm working. I mean, sometimes I joke when the audience is bad. I'll go, time to put on your work boots, boys. Like, this is not fun tonight. This is work. Like,
Well,
But then you
there's
have beers after
businessy.
the show, and then you're like, this doesn't work.
There's businessy aspects to.
There definitely is. It's definitely a
comedy,
job. And
but-
well, here's the issue too. I think a lot of comics love joking about how it's not work. That when non-comics go, oh, you like, is this a hobby or is this a job type of thing? It's like, fuck you, man. Like, we're the ones who get to say that. Like, we're the ones who get to poke fun at it, not you.
That's true.
I do so much work for my job that I don't get paid for.
Right.
That it would if I could legitimately sit people down and explain to them everything that comics do just to make themselves good enough for that $100 they get for 20 minutes, you would never put in that dedication.
That's true.
To a normal 9-to-5 job. You would go, fuck you. I get paid to be here from 9 to 5, and from that, suck my dick.
Yeah.
You would never do that.
Yeah.
But we go home and we spend hours looking at, does this word go here? Does this thing go here? Does this sentence not to be said? Does this joke go before this one? Does this one go before this one? Like, so much work.
And can you imagine if you clocked all those hours?
Yeah.
Like, it would be a lot.
It'd be amazingly
Yeah.
high the number of unpaid hours you get for what you do is your job.
Right.
People
yeah.
don't think me sitting at home writing is my job, but it is my
Oh,
job.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus. Y'all should be getting paid for all
Who's
these
gonna pay
hours.
me for that? Nobody.
I don't know.
You know, like,
It's an ideal
I can't
world that I'm
ask the
dreaming.
club to pay me for the hours I spend working.
Well, I guess
on
the
my
only
jokes.
way that you could do that is if you were like working on a TV show or something. I don't know. Like you'd be, you know what I mean? Like,
if you're a writer on a TV show, you get paid when you're writing those jokes, for sure.
but that's not the
But,
reality for a lot.
Do you know those people that are writers on those shows? They spent many hours in their house writing jokes they didn't get paid for. You do a lot of work in comedy, so that when you get paid eventually, it's for the work that you did that you didn't get paid for.
Right.
Whether it's lined out like that or not. Like, people sometimes find out that I make $500 for 20 minutes and like, oh my God. I remember a trivia one night, I made a joke about it to this team. And I was like, oh yeah, like I just made $500 for 20 minutes the other night. And this girl went, marry me. And I went, this is not an all-time thing. This is not like every day I'm making $500 for 20 minutes. Why the fuck do you think I'm going to Boston Pizza on a Thursday?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not here because I like you guys.
Yeah. And not only that, but like you might get a lot of money at once, or if you have like a really good month, and then the next month it would not. It won't be as good, and so you have to learn how to make that money last. And
Theoretically.
Theoretically. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm terrible at it. So.
Well, I
buy stupid shit all the time.
You love buying stupid shit.
Oh boy.
So do you have a portion of your budget that just says stupid shit?
I like how you said I had a budget. That's the best part. Don't even have one of those. Don't know what they are.
I don't know either, and I should.
But you're right. It is. I think I said to Travis on our podcast, I gotta stop saying treat yourself, because how many times a day can you treat yourself?
Treat yourself.
Treat yourself.
It shouldn't even be every day.
Yeah. Like, I bought this
I don't know.
Like I bought this chain that
Let me
looks
see this chain.
so much bigger online.
Oh, it's so dainty.
And then I got it. And it's so small.
Oh.
And I don't even know why I bought a chain in the first place, because it's such white trash thing to do.
Yeah.
But I had this envision, like I was like,
I picture you like a pimp. I
think I said at Beerley's the other night, like, because I had this hat on. I always wear this hat. I had this hat on. I had that hoodie on. I had this chain hanging out over a gray t-shirt, and I said I looked like the lowest level mob enforcer. Like, if I was on The Sopranos, I wouldn't be big pussy, I would be no pussy. And I don't usually put bits on podcasts, but that's
I love that.
Fucking,
well, we're at
or
the
jokes
end.
on podcasts. Yeah.
Whoever heard it deserves to hear it. Okay, guys, the last clip of this episode is going back again to episode 76, the first ever episode with Andrew. I love this clip so much. This was kind of right at the end of the episode. So I'm telling you, some of the best stuff is at the end of episodes. It's crazy. In this clip, we actually talk about having that innate sort of desire to perform and kind of where that came from for him. He also gave a really awesome shout out to two friends of his, Martin Edwards and Andrew Evans, and talks about the idea of how sort of Andrew Evans helped bring him up in comedy and that he helped bring Martin up. Just a really sweet sort of clip of him talking about friendship and comedy. And of course, this is classic Andrew talking about paying dues. And he actually gave a really solid piece of advice for anyone thinking about starting comedy.
I haven't told very many people this. It's not like super embarrassing, but it's like a little embarrassing.
That's right.
As I remember, like, I talked about people before that always like try out different things because they feel like they're supposed to do something special. But like when I was a little kid, like my mom was dating this guy in Bridgewater, and he had this garage, like this big garage, like not like 2-car garage. We're talking like a mechanics type of like giant, and he'd have like army trucks in, he'd work on them and shit. But when you open the fucking doors, it felt like a stage. Like it felt like a curtain coming up from the stage.
Cool.
And like the concrete felt like the stage like edge. And I just remember I used to spend like days out there like playing music and like dancing around and singing to it, like as if I was like performing the song.
Yeah.
So there's been something about like that draws you performance that drew me to.
I did that too.
Yeah.
When we were building a deck like on our house, and I used to go out and do the Spice Girls thing.
Yeah.
Like get a hairbrush.
Yeah.
Totally.
Well,
I think it's just in some people to do that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that you like. I mean, now as a comic, I walk into places and go, "Oh, we could do a show here. Yeah. This could be if you put this here and you had the audience, that'd be a show there."
Because there's an aspect to what you're doing. Because you're a comic, but you're also obviously like you host shows.
Yeah.
There's event planning in that. Like you look at spaces and you say,
"Yeah,
okay, like this is what it's gonna look like.
Yeah,
these are all the details that are gonna like. That's a talent that not everyone has."
Oh yeah, I mean,
you know,
the booking and putting together shows part is the most stressful part of the whole industry.
I can imagine.
But mostly too, it's like because like when I book paid shows and I put my friends on them,
right?
I want them to have a good time,
right?
It's not just about a payday. I want them to walk away going, I had fun doing that set tonight. Exactly. And that's very hard sometimes, very stressful.
And it's also, there's just certain people that are meant to be encouraging to others. Yeah. People who are meant to pump other people up and say, like, you got that thing? Like, you're kind of good at that. Do that. And be the fire to those people. You know what I mean?
I love doing that to other comics, man. Yeah. I love like one of my really close friends over the last couple of years is Martin Edwards. And I fucking love that man. Like his totally different style of comedy than what I do.
Right.
And, but I think he's hilarious. But I also love his dedication. Like he co-hosts Gus with me. I do one week, he does the next week. And I really like him, man. I think he's very funny. He's very dedicated. And I like getting a chance I could do. Like one of the first road gigs he got to do was because I asked, like, can I bring somebody with? Like, there you go. It was like, I love shit like that. I love being able to help back and
you're a connector.
Yeah. I love being able to look at a comic and be like, you're fucking funny. You just need the right, because people have done that shit for me. Like the only reason I get to tour Ontario is because my buddy Andrew Evans, like the Absolute Comedy Clubs I play, he's been playing there for years and he vouched for me. That's the only fucking reason I get that shit.
So fucking talk to people who are doing the thing that you want to do.
If I could, if I could give any advice to anybody that's really seriously
give some advice.
Comedy,
let's do it.
Just fucking do it.
Yeah,
you gotta just do it. But before you start doing it, and I know it's hard to find out what is going on in your city. Even if you Google it, sometimes it's hard as fuck to find out. Go to shows first.
Yeah.
One of the things I tell all new people who've never done stand-up before, like, go see a show, introduce yourself, talk to the person who runs it,
get out there,
because it makes them seem, instead of you just messaging them on Facebook and, can I get stage time, it makes it feel like you're putting a little more initiative into it by showing up first.
You're getting the vibes of the room, and then
you just go and you do it, and you keep doing it and you keep working on it. Don't worry about writing new shit all the time. I fell into that trap when I first started. You really are trying to learn how to be comfortable on stage.
Yeah, that's a huge one.
And you keep doing that shit, and just like, but my biggest piece of advice is like, a lot of new comics are doing this lately, and I don't understand it, is they think that a year in means that they should be headlining.
Right.
And it's like,
not so much.
No, man, you got to pay your dues. Like Brian Thompson, like Brian and I joke about this all the time now, but about how when I started, Yeah, there was the back of the room at the club, and you didn't talk to the back of the room at the club. You waited for the back of the room to talk to you. Sign of respect.
Right.
And Thompson was what I consider part of that back room. And he goes, we didn't see it that way at all. I don't know why you're like I don't know, man. We had this like speak when spoken to mentality. And I think that's super important for new comics to have. Is speak when spoken to. Like, it doesn't mean you have to be afraid of the other comics, but like, if you've done 2 sets and you try going up to a guy who's been doing it for 9 years and try to tell him how to do the business, fuck you.
No,
you keep it's okay to have those thoughts, but keep them inside. Keep them inside.
Keep them buried down deep.
So like that, the best piece of advice I give anybody that ever wants to do with comedy, and this is hard for me, and I struggle with this all the time. Treat comedy like a marriage. It's the best piece of advice given to me. It's not my advice.
Yeah.
If you're having a rough time in your marriage, you don't go on Facebook and start shit talking your wife or your husband or your fiance.
Yeah.
You deal with your own shit personally and privately.
That's so true.
Treat comedy the same way.
Okay, guys, that's a wrap on this week's episode. This podcast tribute to Andrew Vaughan. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope it provided some laughs and some comfort during this time. And once again, I am thinking of all of Andrew's friends and family right now. It's just so freaking hard, but I truly do think that us together will heal each other and help each other through this. And as for you, Andrew, thank you for being such an amazing friend of mine and a support in my life. And oh boy, you've had such an impact. So I miss you and I love you, buddy. And I also hope to anybody listening that if you're a fan of the show and if you're someone who enjoyed Andrew Vaughan, go see live comedy. He would want you to do that. He loved comedy so much. And so that is a small thing you can do to sort of carry on the legacy of Andrew Vaughan. Make sure you do support live comedy once it's back up and running. And we're going to close off this episode with a couple minutes of a set, his set from my live show. So I think he would want you guys to hear him doing what he did best, which is stand-up comedy. If you want to hear the whole thing, it is on YouTube. So do make sure to check that out. Make sure to buy his album, Too Fat to Go Kart. And that's it. Rest in peace, Andrew Vaughan. And thank you all for listening.
Some good news the other day. I'm not fat anymore. Found that out. That was some nice news, yeah. I went in to buy a pair of jeans, looked at the size, and it said relaxed fit. Apparently I'm not fat. I'm just very fucking relaxed. I went into the doctor. He's like, you're morbidly obese. I'm like, nah, dude, I'm just fucking chill. Which is a joke. It's Nova Scotia. I don't have a doctor, so. Yeah. You know what I do have, though? $75,000 in debt to the government of Canada for student loans. Yeah. I'm an English major. That's it. I feel like they should have asked me what I wanted to do with that fucking money before they gave it to me. They're like, Mr. Vaughan, what do you want to do? I'm like, I don't know. I want to read some books. They'll be like, well, here's a library card and a bus pass. Knock yourself the fuck out. Prepare for your future. I'm not paying them back. Fuck that shit. That's on them. Sometimes you gamble, sometimes you lose. You know what I mean? The CRE needs to learn when I walk away from the table. I was a bad investment. I went to St. Thomas University in Fredericton. The reason I went is my buddy was going. He called me up because you got to come, Andrew, because the women outnumber the men 4-1. I don't know if you guys have ever been in an area before where the women outnumber the men, but here's what'll happen. First, the women will scoop up all the attractive men, and they'll start dating and hooking up with them. And then, when all that's left are men that look like me, the rest of the women will just fuck each other. That's what they'll do. They will not settle. And they shouldn't. I am no catch. I had women in university treat me like leftover food in the refrigerator. Like, they were hungry, but when they opened up and saw me, they were like, you know what? I think I'll just eat out tonight. I think that's what I'll do. Justeatout.ca. Skipthedick.com. I'm branding. And I don't want to pay student loans back. They're calling me. I don't want anything to do with them, right? So what I did is I created a soundboard of quotes that I can play that I don't actually have to deal with student loans. They're all quotes from somebody else, and that somebody else is the rapper DMX. DMX is a very bald, aggressive black rapper. He barks, one of my favorite in the entire world. So student loans will call me up. They go, Mr. Vaughan, we're here to talk about your student loan. I click a button, and DMX goes, here we go again. You ever gonna pay us back, Mr. Vaughan? I click another button, and DMX goes, suck my dick. Yeah. One woman, why you gotta be so mean? I clicked a button, and DMX goes, I'm not a nice person. It's one of his lyrics. I'm not a nice person. It's because white people don't really listen to him. He gets super fucking real. Like, there's one of his songs where he's like, I can't afford my mortgage. I'm like, yeah, it's fucking tough, DMX. It's tough in the hood, you know? I love rap music. I listen to rap music exclusively when I drive because it hypes me up, makes me feel tough. I'm not tough. It's nice to feel tough once in a while. When I'm driving and I'm listening to rap music and I'm getting hyped up, I think of the movie Boys in the Hood, which I'll explain for the white people in here. It's a movie about boys who grew up in the hood. And Ice Cube is in it. He's got my favorite line. He sees a woman with her baby on the street and he yells, get your baby out the street! And when I'm driving in my car and I'm getting hyped up and I see a woman with her baby in a stroller on the street, all I want to do is yell, get your baby out the street! And one day I was hyping myself up, like, I'm gonna do it, man. I'm gonna fucking say it. I'm gonna make it happen. And I pulled up next to this woman, I rolled down the window, I leaned out the side, she looked up at me and said, hey, get out your mom's minivan! It's like, touche, mom's driving. That was a bad choice. I want to be a rapper. I came up with a rap name. It's Two Bread, because it looks like I ate too much bread. I can't be a rapper. Rappers are tough. Rappers fuck. The only thing I fuck are my knees when I walk. Like, I can't. I did write a song, though. It's called Straight Outta Options, because that's what I am. Straight Outta Options. Crazy motherfucker named Two Bread. Been 15 years since I got head. That's about it. Bye.